Pull up, the block spinning. New ride in my gold frames, match the presidential inside.
Yeah.
Ray-Bans on my eyes. We done bruised and charged. I don't know why they still be looking surprised. Add fuel to my fire, take it higher than they ever seen. My life a movie and I'm living out the best scenes. They call me cocky, in reality I'm confident. And every night we taking shots to our accomplishments.
Cheers.
A lot of food, put it on my plate. And baby pressing not to tell her to wait. She see the signs of the times and the world is so boring. I'd rather pull out the old schools and new foreigns. Tell me what you want, I'll tell you what you need. Them other niggas stuck, Bruce took the lead. I'm teaching on them streets that I used to run. And afterwards chillin' with my Aki on. What's up? Jake's claiming that they own. And they crew is legit. Yeah. I see the things that they doing when they do it out, but they don't do it like this.
Not at all.
Niggas say that they the bomb, and they really be lit.
What?
I see the things that they doing when they do it out, but they don't do it like this. Straight game, money over fame. Put it in accounts, double the amount on some Oprah shit. On occasion we be toasting, and what I'm sipping now the same color as the ocean is. Ride slow with the beat up, sister got her feet up. Head wrap with a skirt on when we meet up. It's really a play, my vibe reading South Central LA. And yeah, we got it cracking from the streets to the bay. All praises to Yahweh when I kneel and I pray, knowing it's all good. I teach truth and spread light in the hood, doing exactly what we want, they only do what they could. Common sense is genius dressed in his working clothes. It's like I work and work more, y'all just working clothes. A lot of bad attitudes and some broken souls. The city of fallen angels, guess that's how it goes.
Damn.
Jake's claiming that they own. And they crew is legit.
I bet.
I see the things that they doing when they do it out, but they don't do it like this. Niggas say that they the bomb, and they really be lit. I see the things that they doing when they do it out, but they don't do it like this.
True Nation.
I just gotta let you know that you've been so good to me. And I know that I can't do it by myself. I need your love so desperately. It's been times I wanted to give up, but your words, they spoke to me. Fill my spirit, help me to believe, but sometimes I still get weak.
I need you to fill me up, until I overflow. The keeper of my way. I need you to fill me up. I need your love always, so I won't go astray. The keeper of my way. I know you know my thoughts, I know you know my flaws. Your love fills up every empty part of me that was hiding for so long. The love of my life, now I've evolved. I wanna be what you want, and by your strength I'll break down every wall. I need you to fill me up, until I overflow. The keeper of my way, the keeper of my way. I need you to fill me up. I need your love always, so I won't go astray. The keeper of my way. Can I get a witness? If you hear me say, if you feel me say,
If you feel me, say yeah, yeah, my way. Sometimes you wanna give up, 'cause you're tired and fed up. But joy comes in time. Don't get weary, you gotta endure. 'Cause one day you'll suffer no more. Just hold on to his hand and let him give you peace. Let his wisdom give you guidance. Give all your worries to him. I'm trying to tell you, 'cause I've been there, and by his grace I'm still here. 'Cause you got to hold on. Don't you get weak, you can hold on. Don't you give up, be strong. You don't have to cry, hold on. We can make it.
I know that the fire can get deep, and it can seem like every part of you is weak. But that's when he is strong. Just know it won't be long. Don't be hasty, it's a marathon.
Just hold on to his hand and
Let him give you peace.
let his wisdom give you guidance.
Give all your worries to him. Don't get weary, 'cause I've been there, and by his grace I'm still here. 'Cause you got to
Hold on,
don't you get weak, you can.
hold on.
You're gonna make it.
Be strong,
You don't have to cry.
hold on. We can make it. Hold on, be strong. Hold on, be strong, yeah.
Evening, everybody tuning in. Tonight is Wednesday evening, and it is True Nation World History once again. My name is Ahman, and I will be walking you through tonight's subject, which is called the Whitewashing of Israel. So we're going to go into this. So again, the Whitewashing of Israel. There's two things that this covers, especially as far as what we understand about the term or the phrase or whitewash. It basically comes in two branches. There's a physical branch, and then there's a mental slash subheader spiritual branch that deals with it. So let's just get straight into it. So the physical aspect of it. In the 1800s, or excuse me, the 19th century, there was a policy throughout Latin America, and I'm gonna make this relevant for you guys because I know us in Los Angeles and in the U.S. Isn't exactly the same culture per se as what goes down in many of the other Latin American countries in this continent. But as you tie in cultural or political examples, you see actually that they all tie in as one and the same. So again, in Latin America, there was a policy in the 19th century, and this was 300 years after slavery, 300 years after the enslavement of so-called Southern Kingdom blacks and so-called Northern Kingdom Native Americans. There was a policy that went down that was called blanqueamiento, or in Brazil particularly, because they speak Portuguese, embranqueamiento. So this literally means whitewashing, to make white, and that white is signified by the European nation peoples, Esau and Edom, for the general most part. Their policy was to, and again, this is in Latin America, and we're focusing particularly on Brazil. The policy was to bring in a more white population to the country and countries, so that they could basically, in their eyes, cleanse the country at that time from the freed blacks and Native American peoples and all the in-betweens that they designated them as well too, such as mestizos or mulattoes. Everything in between that still had to deal with Israel. They wanted to whitewash them physically. Let me get to a slideshow. I mean, if you can move to the computer, let me know when you got it.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so we see, if you guys can see on this picture, all these pictures really, but the one on the right, this is a famous picture in Brazil called A Redenção de Cam, and that means in Portuguese the redemption of Ham, and it's actually pronounced Redenção de Cam. Spanish and Portuguese is a little similar, but not really. So basically, not only to take away the fact that they thought that black peoples were descendant of Ham, because you got to understand that the Europeans or Edomites around this time before the 19th century, they were heavy into Catholicism and Christianity, so they knew pieces of biblical history and decided that we were descendants of Ham to justify slavery. So, but back on point. This picture is called the redemption of Ham because, as you can see, you see the Israelite grandmother right here on the left, praising the Most High, praising the heavens, and her daughter. That's what, as far as the description right here, her daughter pointing back to the grandmother, and a child, as you can see from 1, 2, 3 people of significantly lighter skin. And then further down the line, we see this man right here, a Portuguese man that married this woman and had this child. that is the basis of what embranquecimiento is about. It's about literally whitewashing the black and native population, Israel, to make kids that are less like their seed and their phenotype. As you can see, the faces on all of them, and especially as we get later into the lesson dealing with more the mental aspect of the whitewashing of Israel, they're happy that this was fulfilled, that they had a lighter skinned baby. And as we know, being a father, the man being a Edomite or so-called European, the child ultimately ends up being a Edomite or so-called European as well too. Keep it on the slide. I'm gonna read this just so you give you guys the textbook or example of what blanqueamiento means. This is from Wikipedia. It says blanqueamiento or branqueamiento or whitening is a social, political, and economic practice used in many post-colonial countries. Again, post-colonial being that slavery was abolished officially, but we know mentally and spiritually, as we're going to find out, not quite. But physically, the chains are gone, but there's other chains that exist for sure. Practice used in many post-colonial countries in the Americas and Oceania. So this is something, again, touching worldwide. This was going all the way to the islands, around Australia, the Pacific Islands, the Philippines, for example. This is a policy, again, that, at least for us in America, we're not too familiar with until we get into a more subtle form of it in the 20th century, which we'll go over in a second too. Countries in the Oceania to improve the race, mejor or mejorar la raza. So improve the race. Each country thinks that they're a race of people, so that's basically what that is getting into in today's standards. Towards a supposed ideal of whiteness. So again, to dominate the society with whiteness. The term blanqueamiento, obviously rooted in Latin America. Let me skip down and show you guys. Symbolically, blanqueamiento represents an ideology that emerged from legacies of European colonialism, legacies that still continue on, which caters to white dominance and social hierarchies. Biologically, blanqueamiento is the process of whitening by marrying a lighter-skinned individual to produce lighter-skinned offspring. So, that's literally what it was about. And this was a policy. Again, this was something that was written in law and enforced through bylaws, such as the immigration of more Europeans to Latin American countries, and then enforced socially to be like, hey, this is a good thing for you to, let me speak as an Israelite. Hey, it's a good thing for me or for you to go get a white woman, go marry her, by marrying her and having that kid with her, you'll increase your social status, which is gonna historically get you out of social economic poverty, and then everything's going to be well for you, the individual. It'll be well for you, the individual. That was the policy, that was the public social policy that was being pushed with this term, obviously being more than a term. Again, it was something in the society back then, and today as well too. So this is called by also what came about in this same similar century, the 18th century before even, eugenics. Anyone that's familiar with eugenics, you might know or understand that eugenics in America, Planned Parenthood, the abortion industry, pretty much. Those are examples of eugenics, policies of eugenics, which is to control biologically a group of people. That's I mean, the shortest definition I can give for you. Embranquecimiento is one of those eugenics policies and plans that was enacted, firstly, throughout Latin America. So look into that. You know, there's many eugenics policies that our captors Esau has been putting upon us since the 15th century, you know, and onward. But he's just gotten more crafty with those things in time. And I want to bring out a scripture actually with that too, explaining that in a, you know, biblical, spiritual eye. I'm going to go to the book of Psalm 83, and I'm going to start through a couple of these verses from verse. Matter of fact, I'm going to start with verse 2 actually. Psalms 83 verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. So these eugenics policies are one of many of the forms of this crafty counsel, embronquimiento, embranzamiento. You know, that's one of those things. Also, yeah, we touched upon this too. The social benefits of doing this. Opposite, you know, in American thought and ideology, they say over here, which isn't, you know, even scripturally true, but they say one drop of black blood, and in America, the United States, they say one drop of black blood pretty much ruins you, you know, socially here in America. But the opposite is true in Brazil in particular at hand. They say one drop of white blood makes you more socially affluent. So those are just little things that I want to, you know, just bring out for you as far as, again, the differences between captivity and slavery traditionally in America versus slavery and captivity in most all Latin American countries. That's why it'd be a little bit of a difficult divide sometimes, speaking from just some, you know, camp experiences, getting in touch with some of our Hispanic cultured 10 tribe brothers. You know, it's different, you know. The ideology of embranquemiento or mestizaje is very strong, which is basically that there's no division between races anymore. You know, everyone's a completely new and different race. And you know what? Honestly, that was the goal. That was the eugenics goal, at least physically, appearance-wise, was to create a new race. Obviously more closer to white, but to erase the history, that came with your culture, pretty much. That's part of, which actually I'm about to get into in a second. That's part of this whitewashing of Israel. You know, it's beyond the appearance. So again, yes, just for everyone to kind of parallel, embranquemiento is unique from, again, American Jim Crow laws, which enforced separation. You know, up until the 19th century, Jim Crow laws, succeeding chattel slavery laws, still overtly let blacks, coloreds, Native American peoples know that, yeah, you're not ish in this society. You know, stay in your place and stay over there, and don't deal with don't deal with our women. You know, they obviously dilly-dallying well with our people, but for us, and again, the men in particular, like, no, that is a capital offense. That's worthy of a lynching, you know. So that's, again, the other side of the coin, dealing with America, you know, and Jim Crow. But again, that was pretty much before the 1960s, because in the 1960s, which is the turn of the middle turn of the 20th century, there was a lot of for America, the rise of what's called, generally speaking, liberalism, communism, and socialism. All those schools of thoughts began to permeate into the United States. So the U.S. eventually, I would say, let's see, 1960 to it's 2000, the 20s right here. Not even 60 years ago is when these thoughts began taking over the generations born in America of Israel, their minds now, pretty much. So that, to speak on just what I just spoke of, that liberal or communist and socialist thought of everyone being one and human, you know, like a utopianism, that was already been implemented in Latin American countries, you know, some close to, 100 years before. So again, they got indoctrinated with that whitewashing. Latin Americans, they got indoctrinated with that whitewashing a lot earlier than Israel and the United States. That came a little more recently until, right now. So again, think Martin Luther King, 1960s. That's pretty much when American blanqueamiento or whitewashing began. You know, the end of the obvious Jim Crow separations to, let's integration. That's what it's called. In America, it's called integration. So just so we understand that. Some scriptures with these that for everything I talked about. I'm going to get to the book of Nehemiah, chapter 13. Ooh, let I find it. Nehemiah chapter 13, Ezra. And I'm going to read from verse 23 through 27. All right, Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 23. In those days, I saw Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and Moab, and their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. So again, you see right here in the scriptures, this was something that had been happened, that we can just prove in our scriptures that this is something that our people have been through. The intermarrying, with other nations of people, and not even having them as servants, but just as a you're on the bottom, I'm on the bottom, we can get through this together. That was like that was the mentality happening back in Nehemiah as well too. But as we can see, our people back then lost their language just the same as our people today lost their language. And this is, again, going to get into the second branch of the whitewashing in Israel. The first, again, was physical, and now we're going to be getting into the mental and spiritual part. But let me finish this up in Nehemiah. Verse 25. And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by God, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there is no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. Shall we then hearken unto you to do all this great evil, to transgress our God, and marrying strange wives? That was the goal, though. That was the whitewashing goal that the Europeans, Esau, had for us. Whether they read this or not, or just came up with it out of the mind of Satan. That's what happened. Um, I'm gonna get also this too. First Maccabees chapter 1 and verse, what's in the Apocrypha, and verse 41. Just scriptures to prove uh, the losing of our physical aspect of the identity, which we're talking about right now. So First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. That's pretty deep, especially when you know that the Most High, made different various peoples and divided them according to, their lands, their customs, and their language. But here you have, way back then, during the rise of the Greek Empire, King Antiochus writing to, again, his whole kingdom, his portion that Israel is a part of, that all should be one people. In verse 42, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. How is that relevant today? Let's say religion is, for one, the Catholic whitewashing, of our book. That's what we basically subscribe to, verbatim, religiously wise. But also, again, it comes with the laws that they implemented. And Branquecimiento, that was a law, a custom with the white people's, Esau's religion. This is self-fulfilling and self-perpetuating prophecy that Israel has been through, and the scriptures already tell you right here. And the last one I want to get is in Daniel chapter 2, verse 43, which is, prophecies specifically regarding these times, and, the vision and the description of that vision dealing with this subject. Oh, there we go. So this is, this is Daniel chapter 2 and verse 43. It says, and the context again is the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had, and the image of the statue, the man statue. It says this in verse 43. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So this is, again, dealing with a particular kingdom that, much like we read about in Maccabees right now, and much like the policies of integration in America or blanqueamiento in Latin America, these are the policies that would make iron and clay, two separate materials from the earth, mixed together, but ultimately, in the long run, realize that it doesn't stick, and that's even going with in the book of Numbers. It talks about the seed of the father is what makes the kid. So that seed, from intercourse, a union between man and a woman, that seed of the father ultimately dictates still in the spirit what that kid is, like his core essence and being. So that's why the iron and the clay, even though it was fashioned together, it wasn't able to stick. That's why to call all nations to be one, like Antiochus and like America has done in the last, more 80 years, long run, it doesn't work out, because the Most High is the one that created us to be different and and diverse in our beings and in our spirits as man, as mankind. We're the Most High's chosen man of mankind, Israel. So at the end of the day, the spirit of that seed of the fathers, from Israel or the heathen, it affects the character, the nature of that person, regardless. So there can never be, regardless of the whitening or the colorization of the child from an interracial union, there can never be a new race created from it, and they can never be the parent that they're not ultimately, despite the physical appearance that it brings. But again, all of this leads up to probably the more stronger portion of whitewashing, which is mental and spiritual. The mental aspect of whitewashing, in a sense, to suppress that, that original foundational Israelite spirit that exists in many of our people across the world. Because again, remember, they are who they are still. But if you can control their mind and suppress their spirit, they're going to work more in fashion of being one with the empire, or being one connected with the iron and the clay, like we read about in Daniel. I'm going to read Psalm 83 again for you guys to segue into this next part, the second branch, the mental and spiritual aspect of whitewashing of Israel. Psalm 83 and verse 3 again. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So, mental is beyond the physical. Mental is dealing with our most secret parts, the mind and such like that, represented by the brain or the head. The mind is what they say the seat of the soul, and such like that, or at least the connection between the body and the spirit. That's what is spoken of by the mind. So if they can enslave the mind, as well as have enslaved the body, you can, as what is that guy's name? The Willie Lynch, as Willie Lynch said, you can make for the oppressor, or the top dog at the time, you can make slaves out of a people for generations upon generation, if you can only put borders and boundaries around the mind for some time, and keep enacting these things. That's what this is a real thing. Mental slavery has done for us. And the most basic form that we can see that is we're going to get 1 Maccabees 3 and 48, but I'm going to preface it really quick. This is only an example of the power of media or propaganda. And I want to bring it to light and understanding. Back then, let's say, in the book of 1 Maccabees, which we're going to bring out right now, they didn't have, as far as media-wise and propaganda, they didn't necessarily have television, like as far as it's divine, vision, a computer screen that's projecting an image, moving images and pictures. They didn't have all that back then. They didn't have radio. They didn't have radio frequencies, prominently, like we have today. Media, basically, to keep it short, media back then, before Christ, and even some centuries leading after him, was not as, how would I say, it was not as profuse as we have it today, where today literally the whole world is connected, both in a cursed and a blessed way, but the whole world is connected by the things that we use from moving pictures and media and the internet. Literally, the whole world is connected digitally that we can, peek into and such like that. They didn't really have that in that depth and detail back then, but what they did have was books, and what they did have was pictures and hieroglyphs. So to keep that rather, that books, pictures, hieroglyphs, pottery and such like that, with hieroglyphs and pictures on that. If you can control the framing of those things, you have control of media and propaganda back then and today. And that's where we're going to get right here into First Maccabees chapter 3 and verse 48. And it says, and this is again referencing to our wars with the Greeks, Israel against the Greeks, and laid open. Let me get you this better in context. Let me start at verse 45. Now Jerusalem lay void as a wilderness. There was none of her children that went in or out. The sanctuary was also trodden down, and aliens, strangers, Gentiles, kept the stronghold. The heathen had their habitation in that place. This is the sanctuary, the temple of the Most High God in Jerusalem and Israel, Judah, during this time. And joy was taken from Jacob, and the pipe with the harp ceased. Israelite music. I'm going to jump to verse 48 now. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. The common term that we get and understand for that is called iconoclasm. And that's more so dealing with 15th century Russian paintings, which were literal paintings that historically were of dark-skinned people representing the Hebrew Israelites, much like us in majority today, but whitewashing them literally with paint. That was iconoclasm in the 15th through 17th century that they did, destroying, or rather destroying the images of Israelite Christian imagery, that was originally supposed to reflect, because art is supposed to reflect life, right? Those pictures in iconoclasm were supposed to reflect the Israelites that were taking part of the early Christian followers of Christ church, from the Byzantine Empire and onward, even during Rome, before the fall of the the Western Roman Empire. Before the fall, there were still pictures and images. But again, this was a tactic, a mental tactic that has been being used by our enemies, crafty counsel. Pretty much, from forever. Psalms 83 is dealing with enemies of Israel way before the Greeks. And the Greeks are doing this. And then as I talked about, just now, our enemies modern day are still doing this this mental media control over us so that it can further break us down into a whitewashed state of mind. So again, let me read this again. Wherein the heathen, the first Maccabees 4 and 48, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. Now, whether the books of our law back then had pictures in them to whitewash, or just changing up, the translation of the law and the history and such like that, however they did it specifically, they, according to scriptures and according to facts and evidence, that's what they did, That's what they did. Caesar Borgia being the face of or the reality of Jesus Christ or Yahweh Shai is a perfect modern day example. That is not true. Christ in Revelation said he is a man, a very dark skinned man, burnt as brass with white woolly hair, which is a complete opposite of the real man, Caesar Borgia, and the way that he looks, white Jesus. That's what they've been doing. So again, this whitewashing is in part implemented by control of our media. The Bible is a media book, you know. It's a history book, it's a prophecy book, and it's a law book. But I mean, at the end of the day, in its most basic form of communication and journalism, the Bible is a book of media. It's just that it's specific in that the Most High God of everything and our chosen God said, this is how it is, though. This is how it's written. This is not, you know, it's not like this. It's like this. But our enemies changed it to be like this. So that's with that. We can get to the slideshow quickly or slowly. I want to get you guys another example. So media. Again, we're talking about media and how it's a form of mental control, you know, mental enslavement through controlling the narrative, you know, controlling the image, pretty much. Controlling the narrative and controlling the image. One of those things that is evident today in America, United States, for instance, is what good old white people and from Europe, you know, the Britons and such, have put on for their own entertainment known as blackface. But wait, it's not limited to just blackface. They also have brown face and red face, and we'll get into those things, and we're gonna read a little bit of what that is. But again, the purpose and the point was to control the narrative of Israelite destiny, in a sense, and give them a prescribed role. So I'm going to read this. This is from blackface.com, and, you know, the subtitle is History of Blackface. It reads, the stock characters of blackface ministry, so minstrel shows were pretty much, before television and movies, they were plays, you know, people that got up on stage, you know, in probably outrageous costumes and was doing the most in drama, tragedy, and comedy to prove or explain or entertain a point. Blackface was one of those things that was done by Esau, white people. The stock characters of blackface ministry have played a significant role in disseminating racist images, attitudes, and perceptions worldwide. Every immigrant group was stereotyped on the music hall stage during the 19th century, but the history of prejudice, hostility, and ignorance towards black people has ensured a unique longevity to the stereotypes. That's important to listen to and understand for right now. White America's conceptions of black entertainers were shaped by ministry's mocking, caricatures, and for over 100 years, the belief that blacks were racially and socially were inferior was fostered by legions of both white and black performers in blackface. And that concept again, that applies to blackface, brownface, which we'll get into briefly, and red face, which is the color of choice that they decided to give to our Native American brothers. Briefly, I'm not going to go into details, but I am going to read you off just, you know, the different characters and why it's significant to bring out for today of blackface. So you have Jim Crow and Zip Coon. Those are blackface characters. You have the character of the Mammy. You have the Uncle Tom. You have the Buck. You have a Winch or the Jezebel. You have the Mulatto, and you have the Pickaninny. If you guys can, you guys can go to this website and definitely get the meat and the details of what they write historically wise. But for time, I'm going to kind of breeze through. But again, these were characters that white people mocked and created us with to exaggerate what they thought about us, the state of living that we were in, and these just became, this is what since it's blackface, this is what black people are about. This is what Judah, the Southern Kingdom, is all about. This is what they're about. That's what these shows perpetuated. And as we read, it said not only white performers did these things back then, before television, and before radio and record labels, but black people or Southern Kingdom Jakes also performed in blackface. So our own people, for whatever the reasons, were hired, paid to promote these images as well to white audiences, and of course as well too to our own people as well too. Again, controlling the image, controlling the narrative of what it means to be Southern Kingdom or black, or Israelite, Israelite through blackface. It's got really good history, as far as the details. But I want to just touch upon the rest of our brothers, so-called Latinos and Native Americans. The fact that that our people, that we have three divisions for what historically in Israel was two separate kingdoms. The fact that we have to call our people in America three different things, being brown or Latino and red or Native American, it just shows more of the mental slavery that we've gone. But again, that brown or Latino identity is that whole mestizaje or blanqueamiento completion, thinking that we're a new, completely different race, which is further from the case according to the scriptures. But brown face, let's just go over the roles that Esau hired in his television shows and theaters as well too for brown face. So for brown face, you had the Latino stereotypes. You had the Latin lover. You had the domestic. You had the male buffoon. You also had the harlot. You had the female clown, and also you had the bandito. And the bandito is basically, when you see, what did they say? Fool's Gone Wild. Hector, the actor Hector that does all the Latino movies, today. He's always a gangster, pretty much. Or if you ever need, a Sureño or Southsider gangster role, he's the guy in Hollywood to hire, along with any other extras, but he's the guy to hire to do that role, And again, that image is perpetuated. Back then it was called the bandido. Today it's called the gangster, And that goes the same with, black people, for Southern Kingdom black folks too. They twisted actually the role, the buck. That's actually who is the gangster role today. But the buck back then in the minstrel shows is still the same buck today in all your rap movies and rap music. It's the same. It's the same stock character, pretty much. And the other one we're gonna get is, again, red face, to deal more culturally appropriate Northern Kingdom, Native American Indian roles. They say racist Indian stereotypes was you had the chief, you had the princess, you had the noble savage, you had the renegade, some Rage Against the Machine there. You had the warrior or the brave, and you had the squaw. And again, you can go on these websites. This one is redface.us. You can read the exact details, but I'm just letting you guys know these are stock characters that they pumped out for our people, blacks, Latinos, Native Americans. And again, it's our people that are being mocked by white people, dressed as us, but now it's our people doing the work for them, pretty much. We pretty much carry on the images thinking that this is what it means to be a black man. This is what it means to be a Native American man. This is what it means to be a Latino or a brown man, which is by design, There may be some truth kernel to it, but obviously we're much more fluid than the stock images that they gave us, Not to mention that all the other things that they don't acknowledge about us. That's what this is about, though. That's what, in its essence, blackface is about. Let me show you that in the scriptures. Oh, yeah, we still got time. This is going to go pretty smoothly, I think. Yeah, let me show you that in the scriptures. I'm going to get to the book of Lamentations, the second hardest book for me to find in my Bible after Ecclesiastes. There we go. The book of Lamentations, chapter 4, verse 61. Actually, chapter 3, verse 61 through 63. So Lamentations chapter 3, verse 61. Thou hast heard their reproach, O Lord, and all their imaginations against me. Who created these character roles, these imaginations, our oppressors, our enemies. The lips of those that rose up against me, and their device against me all the day. Behold, they're sitting down and they're rising up. I am their music. That speaks volume, where it says that I am their music. It's talking about them mocking us, blackface, all the way back to Deuteronomy chapter 28, becoming a byword and a proverb among the nations of people. That's a perfect example of keeping us, especially when we've lost or are in the process of losing our identity as Israelites. That's what keeps us in this mental whitewashed slavery. So again, these things perpetuate negative stereotypes in media, these images that they put upon us. Another case example is, we know them as the white man, but the Amalekites, that control the music industry, And what did I just read right now in Lamentations? It said, behold, they're sitting down and they're rising up. I am their music. It just goes to show you how powerful music is for our people and people in general. But again, Amalek controlling the narrative of so-called black images, through BET, MTV, the record labels, the hijacking of hip hop and even rock music and such like that. Anything that Israel originally created media wise, and taking that and then running with that, and then getting our people to play into their roles or their negative stereotypes of us. This is again, it's a lot older than we think. A lot older. But again, that's a technique. That's the crafty counsel that they've used to cut us off from being a nation of people. That's one of the things. Another one, more direct mental brainwashing or whitewashing is, and the aspect is re-education. So obviously media and propaganda has the potential to re-educate when that's all you blast around, that's all you go to the theaters or the movies for your your leisure time, your entertainment. Yeah, that has a way of whitewashing you or taking away your culture, but More sinister than that, mentally, was what they did to our people in the Native American boarding schools, and even as well as what they did to so-called blacks, Southern Kingdom, on the plantations through buck breaking and lynching as well as that. Both of those, all three of those, again, the boarding schools, the buck breaking, and the lynching. Those were all abusive, traumatic, and degrading tactics that our enemy Esau used against us to again strip away ultimately our identity, which is going to go further into when I get into it on the spiritual aspect of brainwashing. But we're still on mental. If you can, Kanash, if you can get back to the slide, I got the second, not that one, this one I want to get into. So just let me know so I can read it, so if they can see it and they can see the picture. But what I have right now, if you guys can see through the image, camera, PowerPoint, whatever, an article. It's called "The Cultural Genocide and Native American Children," and we see one of the many boarding schools put on Native American reservation lands that our people went through. All these people, are our kids, our brothers, and I think a few heathens maybe scattered out in there, or just, embranquecimiento, Native Americans. But imagine this, all throughout North America, and American policy of what they did to our people. And I'm going to read the article. It says, and it's pretty short, during the late 19th century, when most Native Americans were confined to reservations, the federal government engaged in a cultural assimilation campaign by forcing thousands of Native American children to attend boarding schools. In 1879, the Charles Indian Industrial School in Pennsylvania was founded by Richard Pratt, who believed that Native people would not succeed unless their traditions, habits, and beliefs were eradicated. Based on Pratt's "kill the Indian in him and save the man" philosophy, the Charlie School became a national model. So again, stripping away the traditions, the habits, and the beliefs, that's the culture, that's mental. And this was, again, an institution that did that. Within these schools, sexual abuse happened, death happened, murder, happened, regular abuse, trauma happened, forced language upon our people, forsaking your original language, which was our Native Americans. It's no mystery that they were speaking dialects, diluted dialects of Hebrew. That's what they were speaking, as far as being untouched from other peoples, since coming over here to the Americas way back when in the BC, and before Christ, when they first came over to the Americas, and other parts of the world as well too. That stripping away of the language is crucial, and ultimately that's what led to as far as in Latin American countries, that's what led to the Latino or the Hispanic identity. To keep it a buck and 100, there's probably a lot of Native Americans that take upon a Latino or Hispanic identity, not even necessarily being colonized by Spaniards or Portuguese in a sense, but from here, dealing with the British or the English-speaking ones, and maybe the French too. But the cultural narrative is that if you don't understand that you're a Native American, then you're just some brown kid, you're just some Latino, pretty much. Pretty much, I would say that's what Chicanos that's what their culture is pretty much based off of, with a little bit of the Spanish twang and color in there. But for the most part, that's not where they come from, being as how they're born in America. compared to Latin America. But again, those are just different types of Esau whitewashing. You know, you speak English, you speak Spanish. That's not the bulk of it. Again, a lot of our Native American brothers don't even realize that they may be Native, are Native American throughout the Americas and such like that. And again, some do. But again, the biggest part is that those traditions and that culture and the language was stripped away bigly, primarily because of this case example, boarding schools. These boarding schools implemented that in the 19th century, in the 19th century. That's about 200 years ago, and the legacy of that upon our people today, and how they run whatever little they've been giving from the reservations, and everyone that's not in the reservations. A lot of them have even taken on white identities. Particularly dealing with the lightening of their skin and then being deculturized from their native roots. A lot of our people are mistaken, as white people. Perfect example, underground hip hop cat, Slug from Atmosphere. A lot of people think that by appearance that guy is white, but if you read some of his interviews and such like that, he acknowledges his colored or black father, and he has Native American phenotypes despite being a lighter shade of brown, pretty much. But again, these boarding schools were part of that mental deculturalization for all that. And again, touching upon for our Southern Kingdom side, on the plantations, by the house, the field and the house Negro, what the Willie Lynch letter talks about as far as the biggest one, the buck breaking, which is destroying, the strongest male sexually, homosexually, to keep it a buck too, and in other aspects too, stripping away his power in front of the community, so that the rest of the community will fear, and the one himself, going through all that is directly traumatized, and as well as the women and what the women pass down into the children. That's a boarding school in itself for so-called Southern Kingdom, or Israelites that have the Negro identity upon them. That's the same Psalm 83 tactics to mentally enslave us. It's just more case examples of, again, blacks and blacks and Native Americans and Latinos being of the same stock because of going through the same curses in these case examples that we get. So again, that re-education through those things, those are mental slavery chains, examples that we have for our people, that our people have gone through, and part of the whitewashing again. In the same subpoint and everything, and the last section part, pretty much as we get into, is the spiritual enslavement of our people. Now, when I say this, I'm speaking about what the Most High planned for us and promised for us in the beginning. In the beginning of things, from Abraham all the way down to Moses. Our God, through Christ, promised us to be a nation of rulers, prosperous, wise, and everything that it would take to become the stewards of the earth. That was and to have those things, you have to have certain qualities about you and traits. So this is now where we're getting into the stripping of those traits from us, and now the spiritual whitewashing of our people. Let me see. Let me get to the book of Lamentations again, and I'm going to get chapter 5. And I'm going to read from verse 2 to about verse 15. So this is the book of Lamentations, chapter 5. Our inheritance is turned to strangers, our houses to aliens. We are orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are widows. We have drunken water for money. Our wood is sold unto us. Our necks are under persecution. We labor and have no rest. We have given the hand to the Egyptians and to the Assyrians to be satisfied with bread. Our fathers have sinned and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. We gat our bread with the peril of our lives because of the sword of the wilderness. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. They ravished the women in Zion and the maids in the cities of Judah. Princes are hanged up by their hand. The faces of elders were not honored. They took the young men to grind, and the children fell under the wood. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. The joy of our heart is ceased. Our dance is turned into mourning. Now, what are we talking about again? We're talking about spiritual enslavement. Mental and spiritual is obviously tightly close and connected, but there's just this aspect and this part to where even the scriptures say, a man with a broken spirit, for one, is the Most High respects that in order for you to repent and come back to him, but also that a man's broken spirit completely changes him. It completely the best word I can give you is is depression, but I feel like that's thrown around so it's thrown around so trivially that we don't understand the gravity, literally, no pun intended, the gravity of depression, because of a broken spirit. Now, if our enemies know this, if they know how to break our spirits and keep us there, then again, that's them fulfilling Psalm 83, our ability to be whitewashed, our ability to be given an identity that's not ours, period. So everything that we just read right now in Lamentations, if I could sum it up with a phrase, I will say this in relevance to this lesson. To keep us in a perpetual social, economic poverty is what allows us to be spiritually whitewashed, or at least stripped and broken in spirit, and then whitewashed. Social, economic poverty, and compared to what the Most High promised for us and the history of what our forefathers, had as a people. Abraham was not a poor person. Abraham was a very wealthy man. Everything that came with the wealth that Abraham had, as well as the wealth that the Most High would promise and give to our nation of people, defines the spiritual character of our people, on a physical tip and aspect. But seeing as how we were created to live on this earth with a specific status, it's nothing, how can I say it? It's nothing carnal, or it's nothing vain to acknowledge that us being a wealthy nation of people, a rich people, both in goods and spirit, is indicative of what our name means. You know, princes of power, Yasharahla, the earth being given into our hands again is indicative of our spirits shining. You know, but when that is taken away, that's when we become broken, as the Most High promised us and said throughout Deuteronomy 28. If I could sum up a good bulk of Deuteronomy 28 and give you guys some examples right now too, I would definitely say that social economic poverty is the bulk of what Deuteronomy chapter 28, the curses, talks about for our people. The Most High cursed us with, in American standards of phrases, he cursed us with social economic poverty. And again, that's the word social and economic poverty. All these things look like the theft of our land, Native Americans, us being kicked out of Jerusalem. I mean, shoot, Native Americans or the 10 tribes being kicked out of Israel. Getting taken out of West Africa. For whatever time that we thought that living in West Africa was our land. That's stripping of our land, the stealing of our land. The ridicule, what we just read about, with blackface and redface and brownface and such, that mental mockery of us, that ridicule that we're constantly being pumped and pushed with. Crime, which Deuteronomy chapter 28 speaks a lot about, thine eye shall be evil towards thy brother. That's going to make you commit crimes to your brother, black on black crime, black on brown crime, native red on black crime. Those are things that pull us down into social economic poverty. Childhood trauma, that comes with this social economic poverty, like we read about in the Native American boarding schools, the after effects of lynchings, public lynchings, and buck breaking, how that has on the kids, the family and such like that. Within our own communities, sexual abuse amongst our own people living in the ghettos and in the reservations and everywhere else, whatever it's called around the world, is a fact, that happens quite often within Black, Native American, and Latino households, So that's something that's perpetuated as well too. Disease. Again, all these things that are talked about in Deuteronomy chapter 28, smiting you with a botch, burning. Those are all different various diseases, and every disease that's not written about in this book, COVID, AIDS, whatever have you. Our people suffer a good amount of that to this day, and had been in our captivities, but nothing, as bad as it is today. Addiction, drug addiction, and I say that, I say that as a two for one, pretty much, because both drugs, stuff that is cool for us to use, but that we can abuse because of addiction, like alcohol, and then other things that we just we shouldn't even be, touching or messing with, period, like crack and fentanyl, some of the various high potency, psychedelics, that our people have, experiment and play around with, to figure things out, those things lead to the destruction of, quite literally your mind, and then therefore, your reality and such like that. Deuteronomy chapter 28. I'm gonna the Most High is saying, I'm gonna smite you with madness and blindness of heart. Drugs is definitely a big aspect of that. I'm talking a lot right now, but I'm gonna keep talking. But I want to read this article for you right now, real quickly. If you Kanash, if you want to switch to the PowerPoint. This comes from PS Magazine, or Pacific Standard Magazine. The title of the article is let me see. It's the title of the article is called "Liberals Love Disease Theory Addiction, Liberal Hates." I'll get you the title right now, but I want to read this section for you right here. So this is a case example right now from this article, and from where you're at, starting at, it says, "But they're not, and that's talking about in context of the article. It's talking about people with money that have addictions versus people that don't have money or socially impoverished that have addictions. But they're not, Poverty is conclusively linked with a greater risk for addiction and with the probability of worse consequences for people who become addicted." And again, that's to anything. You can become addicted to sex. You can become addicted to liquor and alcohol. You can become addicted to other hardcore drugs. You can become addicted to video games. You can become addicted to anything that is going to take away this emptiness that you feel in the bottom of your spirit. Again, what we're talking about. Let me keep reading this article, though. And with the probability of worse consequences for people who become addicted, I turn to my good colleague at Substance.com, the often prescient Maya Slavitz. After announcing in her piece, "These new face of heroin stories are just the old face of racism. That, of course, middle-class kids use heroin and painkillers so everyone's equal on the score," she sneaks in. That's, again, against the point of the article. The article is written as that's not the case. When you're in poverty, it's worse. But let me read on. "Addiction rates are higher in poor people, not because they are less moral or have greater access to drugs, but because they are more likely to experience childhood trauma, chronic stress, high school dropout, mental illness, and unemployment, all of which raise the odds of getting and staying hooked." Continuing. "Wait a second, run that by me again. After we discard the chaff, poor and black people are less moral and have more access to drugs, we come to the crux of addiction." The crux being, the cornerstone of addiction. "Underprivileged people are more likely to experience childhood trauma, chronic stress, high school dropout, mental illness, and unemployment, all of which raise the odds of getting and staying hooked." That's a rather important fact to bury near the end of the article, don't you think? Especially considering that Maya worked with Hart on his book, and certain psychological dispositions came along with those deprived situations. And let me read the last part of this article. And it says, it's right here. Follow-up studies on these preschoolers found that those who were able to wait 15 minutes to eat a marshmallow, so this is a case study they're talking about. Those who were able to wait 15 minutes, preschoolers, to eat a marshmallow were significantly less likely to have problems with behavior, drug addiction, or obesity by the time they were in high school, compared with kids who gobbled the snack in a minute. Last paragraph. Hart identified this search for instant gratification with an upbringing in an underprivileged setting. Quoting and saying, when you are uncertain of what life holds for you, you grab what you can when you can. And to piggyback off that, what that just said in the scriptures, I'm going to get a specific scripture in Deuteronomy chapter 28 that says exactly that. That is an exact curse that our people, socially and economically impoverished, go through, which leads to, again, the point of this addiction. So as the article right now just said, as I said, when you are uncertain of what life holds for you, you grab what you can when you can. This is what the scriptures say. Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 65. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning, for the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. So what comes along with breaking a man's spirit, and entangled with socioeconomic poverty? Ultimately, what that scripture is talking about is our people suffer from hopelessness. When you don't have any type of hope, again, you turn to things like addictions, whether they be drugs, sex, crime, thrill seeking, all these things that we do to grope at noonday like the blind, but still never grab hold onto what it is that we're truly searching for, which is the reestablishment of our spirit, becoming, kings and kings again, in the sight of the Most High, living righteously, which comes with all the perks and privileges. But again, at least in this captivity, in this whitewashing captivity, the breaking down of our spirits, when we suffer from hopelessness, we're susceptible and vulnerable to become whitewashed, to become like Edom, to become like Esau. Despite your color, you're more susceptible for him to take control and to pimp you in a sense like that, and form you and create you and make you into what he wants you to be. And again, that hopelessness came from the re-education boarding schools, the re-education on the plantations, the media and propaganda, the whitewashing, iconoclasm, all those things stacked on top of reforming us into the whitewashing of Israel mentally, as well as physically too. And again, because of the culture that comes along with social economic poverty, the nihilism, the absurdity, the hopelessness. That's the culture that we deal with as far as being cursed by the Most High, and what he allowed for us to experience and happen. All that identity crisis, existential crisis, nihilism. That's all part of the broken spirit that it takes to have ourselves whitewashed. So, all that being said, to touch upon the point of really everything, but the more physical aspect of it, the bottom line is Daniel chapter 9, verse 7 through 9, which I'm going to read for you right now. Confusion of face, both figuratively and literally. As soon as I can find Daniel. Daniel chapter 9, verse 7 through 9. O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of faces, as at this day, to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far off, throughout all the countries whither thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. O Lord, to us belongeth confusion of face, to our kings, to our princes, and to our fathers, because we have sinned against thee. To the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him. So the bottom line is, yeah, Israel is both whitewashed today physically, lighter shaded, skinned, and mentally. But there is hope in coming back through the Most High Spirit and Holy Spirit, choosing, those elect, and those elect going about and re-waking up our people, finding our people throughout the world, whitewashed physically and mentally, and waking them up and bringing them back home to our churches, our congregations, wherever we may be across the whole world. And that's the upside, and that's the hope side that we have, in spite of the whitewashing of Israel that we are still washing away today. That concludes tonight's history lesson. Again, my name is Ahman Allah. True Nation World History, Wednesdays, every Wednesday. Check us out, 7:30 or whenever time you manage to get to see us. Check out our other classes that we do throughout the week too, and our closing Sabbath class on Friday evening and Saturday afternoon. And with that, I say good night.